G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR and welcome to a very, very special video today. It is the one that you've been asking for. I am here with my brother Janath, co-host of the Supercoach Swordplay and also a very, very special half of the Third Man Up on X. Brother, how are you going? Very, very excited to chat with you again and even more excited to get stuck into your team reveal for 2024. I'm speaking to you even though your boys managed to shatter my lines by a point with about a minute and a half to go in the game. But I'll forgive you that because I do have much love for you. How are you been, brother? Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me on, DR. I tell you what, Friday night, Jesus, it's just one of those games where it just defines your season because you're like, no matter what happens in the season, you can always come back to it. You're like, boys, we came back down from 8 goals. You're never out of it, really. I was just so proud of the boys. Doing well. What is it after our Carlton preview? A couple of things happened. Sam Walsh hasn't played since. And Harry Mackay, geez, he could be a genuine option now in Supercoach. We didn't even talk about him in the preview, but yeah, looking forward to cracking into this team reveal with you, mate.
Looking forward to it, mate. And just with Harry Mackay, a former winner has him as a pod in his team as well. So if he's going with him, pretty interested myself in a way. But geez, there's a lot of blokes to fit in, mate. But look, tell us, before we actually get into this team, mate, you have been doing some wonderful work with the Third Man Up, you and Roscoe. Tell us a little bit about what you got coming up, some really exciting stuff going into 2024, legend.
Yeah, so big year for Third Man Up. We took a big step forward over the off-season going into sort of premium, ex-premium. We paid up to Elon just to sort of increase our reach. But really it's looking to tailor more content from a stats perspective, really expand on what we had last year. It says there, home of the Supercoach rookie data dump and the captain's corner. So they will continue to come out on a weekly basis, but we're just sort of venturing into other sort of novelties in Supercoach. So we're looking at sort of weekly help desks on the day of the start of the round, and also like weekly guides, summaries of all the key information, the key trade-ins, key trade-outs, sort of our opinion and data put together, objectives, subjectiveness. There's just a bit of a mix of that. Been trying to cover as much preseason as possible, ones to watch, sort of really player sort of insights. And I guess another thing something that I reckon we could do on Swordplay as well is guessing the subs. That was something fun that I took up at the start of the round after the Sydney-Melbourne game.
I saw that. There we go, 5 out of 6 for you as well.
And
I'll tell you what, Lions versus Lowman. As a Lions man, I was 100% with you. When I say a Lions man, a Brisbane Lions man, 100% with you. I was surprised that he got the nod over Kai.
Shattered.
But unlucky, mate. Unlucky.
You
still did much better than my tipping this week. 1 out of 4 for me in regards to the tips as well. So, oh, mate. No good.
I'll tell you what, though, mate. This right here, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I got 5 out of 6, because now I think that I'm going to be able to predict every sub, which is not going to happen because there's just going to be so much chaos that happens when the subs are named 1 hour out from the game, and you're just like, geez, that's my loophole right there. That's my only loophole right there.
Oh, beautiful, mate. Well, love what you and Roscoe are doing. Terrific combo. And for those of you who don't know Roscoe as well, terrific lad. I've had a couple of great moments with Roscoe, particularly there at Crown. So shout out to you, great man, as well. And hoping to get him on for the Saints review within the next few days as well. So looking forward to that. But brother, we are actually here for your team review. So I'm looking forward to it. Now, I've had a bit of a sneak peek, just given the fact that I had to put a few notes here. But there's some players that may surprise people. I'm pretty keen to see, hey, have you been reactive to these pracky games? Are we going to see your Flanders, your Dogger Jacksons, your Heaney types, your Zach Fishers? Very, very interested to see what's going to happen with the side. So let's get to it, mate, and reveal what your side is going to look like going into 2024. All right, here we are. Here is the blank canvas for 2024. The big question is, my man, who is starting at D1? There's a fair bit of competition there this year. I'm interested to see if you're going with the other 70+% of the competition, or whether or not you're looking to fade a particular man, the king of Collingwood. So, mate, let us know, who is your D1 going into this year?
I am a sheep, and I will start Nick Dacos at D1. It's just potentially could put 10 points on the next closest defender. He's just an incredible player. 15 tons in 17 games to begin 2023, 12 scores that you would happily take as your captain, arguably underpriced after his 41 injury-affected game against Hawthorn. He just ticks all the boxes. Even yesterday in round 0, 130, just made it look super easy. Yeah. He's just one of those players that you don't want to own. And I know the narrative around him is he's got the round 5 matchup against Hawthorn. I've been speaking to Hawthorn people, and Finn McGuinness, he may not even be in. It's just one of those things where you can't pick or you can't make a decision around Dacos solely based on another player in another team that's a fringe player that may not even play, that may be injured in that round. Dacos does have the round 5 bye, but I just want to watch him play and actually enjoy watching him play without having to close my eyes every single time he goes near the ball.
Oh, it's so true, isn't it? He's one of those blokes as well that really can get out of reach. And agree with you, spoken to many Hawks fans, a lot of divisiveness between them, even with Finn McGuinness. So I don't think it's something that we should be counting on. Finn McGuinness just completely shutting down this man. We already saw, as you mentioned, what he did round 0. So I've actually come along with you as well. I've said all preseason, I'm not going near him. I'm not going with the 70%, but I'm now absolutely with you, locked in at D1 for me as well, buddy.
Just 2 other things with that as well is, like, one, if he goes big early, you're going up against 70% of the competition. We both know how, like, to put it as simple as possible, how bad our starts were last year to Supercoach. Like, I think we were both outside the top 70K after round 1.
Oh, don't
and
remind me,
mate.
It's
just a mountain to climb right back there. And if Dacos is he did it last year, he could do it this year as well. And I guess he played full-time mid yesterday. Now, will Hawthorn sacrifice a Hustwaite, a Ward, a McKenzie, Warpool, Newcomb, someone like that to bring Finn McGuinness into that midfield mix at CBAs just to tag Nick Dacos? I just can't see it personally. And that's just something, just thinking about Dacos's dynamic in the Collingwood team. He may travel around the ground with him, but it takes so little for Dacos to get off the chain.
Absolutely, mate. Great call, and could not disagree with anything that you just said there. So that's why he's also my current D1. Now on to the D2 position. So this is where things start to get a little bit different for lots of sides that I've seen anyway. Who has got that glorious position just under Nick Dacos for you going into 2024, brother?
Surprisingly, one of my first picked. Let's go to Dan Houston.
Oh, Danny boy, here we go.
Now let's hope we don't have any problems with this pick. He had an All-Australian season last year. Many may remember his after the siren goal against Adelaide, against Essendon at the G. Turned up in 14 games, and he showed his ceiling big time. 146 round 14, 156 round 16, 176 in round 18. I remember watching that game in round 18 against the Blues. I'm pretty sure, and he just ripped us a new one. He was the only one doing anything in that game for Port Adelaide, but he was just lights out. Brilliant play to watch. But one thing that's really underrated with Houston, and it's sort of a blessing for having gather round in Adelaide, is that he averaged 114 in his games at Adelaide Oval in 2023, and that's where 4 of the first 5 and 7 of the first 10 games for Port Adelaide are. 109 points in less than 80% time on ground in the practice match, the main distributor for Port Adelaide, and he didn't even have a kick in. So I think everything looks good for Houston as my D2. Tom Stewart was D1, D2 territory, but I just have, it's not glaring concerns, and he would be the next cab up off the rank, but it's like the age factor, and I just don't like that round one matchup against St Kilda. There's just something about that the Saints, yes, they give up a load of points to defenders, but I just can't see Ross Lyon sort of just saying, okay, we did this last year, let's just let this happen again, sort of thing. There's just a gut feel that the matchup in round one isn't ideal.
Yeah, really good points, mate. Another thing I'd add as well, and again, you can't predict that this will happen again this year, sorry, but in previous years, it just seems like he bobs up in really important matches. You already mentioned that kick after the siren as well, but he's the sort of bloke that when the game's tight, he can just come in for some sort of an impact, and Supercoach loves that with their scaling. I think some people are a little bit worried about, and he did mention this, the fact that he doesn't really have to rely on kick-ins. Well, that's not what they're worried. They're worried that he doesn't get kick-ins, but you're not too worried about the fact that he doesn't get those because he's shown that he can score without relying on those. Let's just say that he does get a couple of bonus kick-ins, and that ceiling could even get a little bit higher. And you are in good company with Dan Houston, because had JB from Dr. Supercoach on here the other day, and he has really not left his side all pre-season. So he's a Port man in very good hands there, brother.
I guess the only concern with Houston that I had, and it's the only reason why he wasn't super locked in from the start, is just he's shown signs of a low ceiling, not even because he gets tagged or anything, but he scored 47 in round 13, 61 round 21, 63 round 23 last year. And it's just these signs that, okay, he's probably not got the floor off those upper echelon sort of defenders like your Sinclairs and your Dacos, Stewart, for instance, but he's got that ceiling, and I think if he works on his floor, we could definitely see him be a top 6 defender with a really good buy. That's really important, is that probably Hayden Young, Dan Houston, Luke Ryan, probably the only 3 relevant defenders from that round 13 buy. So it's just, round 13 Port Adelaide Fremantle buy, so it's just a blessing there.
I like it, mate, and pretty pottish as well, which is always a little bit of a bonus, I think, buddy. All right, so Dacos and Houston, 2 pretty solid picks for your D1 and D2, mate. How about D3? I'm guessing we're going with another premium here. Who's got the coveted D3 position for you, mate?
Well, very much similar to Nick Dacos last year. I'm going to go with Harry Sheasel from North Melbourne. The likeness is just... it's just there for everyone to see, isn't it? Like, a young player, highly drafted, that the coach wants to keep around the ball or near the ball in the general vicinity. We were talking about it last year, I reckon, and that's at this same point in time, just how much Clark would want to have Sheasel around the ball. He averaged 112 in the last 7 games for North Melbourne with just 1 sub-ton. He took the predominant amount of kick-ins, and we'll talk about it a bit later as well, but North Melbourne halfbacks in Supercoach are just Supercoach gold. They have been for a while, and I just can't see any reason why, if Sheasel isn't playing halfback, he isn't playing midfield. I just can't see with Zane Dersma and sort of Cam Serha, Paul Curtis. There's just players forward of the ball that can do their role in a way that Harry Sheasel does his role really well of halfback and in the midfield. Arguably underpriced at 550k. It's just one of those picks where if it goes right, has a good buy in round 12. There's not too many other relevant defenders from Brisbane, GWS, Sydney that you'd really want to start with, given they all have round 0 buys associated. So yeah, going to start Sheasel at D3. Your thoughts?
Beautiful, mate. Yeah, look, I've got him in my side currently as well. Look, the only thing I was a little bit spooked by is the fact that I thought in the last preseason game, he really did junk it up in that last quarter. And I thought that he went, I won't say went completely missing, but did get a little bit quiet, particularly in the second and third terms. That's when obviously Fisher was dominating and McKercher got a little bit more active there as well. So that was a slight concern for me. But I agree with you, mate. That role for North Melbourne is absolute Supercoach gold. And I still think that there's enough of the pie for Sheasel, Fisher as well. I'm not sure if he'll feature in your forward line or not, as well as McKercher. It will be decent selections this year, mate. So I'm all with you on Harry Sheasel, but that was the only thing that spooked me slightly. The fact that I thought those numbers were a little bit inflated in the last Pracky match due to really going off and junking up a little bit in that last quarter. But yeah, really, really solid pick for me, mate. What I'm really interested in, and I think what the viewers will be interested in, is what you're now doing with structure, because I haven't seen any teams without at least your 3 premiums there. The big question now is that do you go down to a mid-pricer, a rookie, or do you keep it strong and go with 4 really solid options down back? A lot of competition for this spot, mate. Who are you going with at D4, my brother?
So for a couple of weeks now, I've sort of been settled on having a 4 premium defense. And so that's why I'll be going Hayden Young at this spot.
Beautiful.
So definitely not an unpopular selection by any means. 4 straight scores above 110 to finish the season after getting more than 75% CBAs. One thing that was really looking at in the practice match, more so than scores or anything, was just how tight that Fremantle midfield would be. And sort of just seeing Sarong, Fife, Young, Brayshaw, and Brayshaw being the one to get pushed out to the wing to facilitate Sarong, Fife, and Young when they're on the ground at the same time was really, really, it really assured that selection off Hayden Young. He scored 115 in 75% time on ground in that game against Port Adelaide, the practice match. And I think he's just a safe selection, given if he stays in that midfield role. He's a talented junior, got a really good kick on him. We saw him score 2 goals as well. It feels like a selection which he should have a high enough a floor that he won't completely bomb out, but also potentially high ceiling in those sort of best 18 games where it could really vindicate the pick.
Agreed, mate. And with his role, I don't think that his role is going to change. But let's just say worst case scenario, with what people may be thinking, he goes down back. I still think he can average what he's priced at anyway if he is down back. So I think that after I think it was the first practice match against West Coast, cold feet for some people, didn't really like what they saw. But in that second match, as you mentioned, mate, hit the scoreboard, I think twice, looked really silky. Don't think his disposal efficiency was where it would usually be at as well. So possibly a little bit more meat on the bone, but talented player, great kick to handball ratio. I love him and was pretty much one of the first locked in my side, mate. Has not left my side once during the preseason, has Hayden Young. So really like that, mate. So you've gone your 4 heavy down back, your Dacos, Houston, Sheasel and Young. And I think with Sheasel and Young in particular, a little bit of value there. Houston, great start to the season. And Nick Dacos, I've really changed my tune. I now view him as a non-negotiable. So really impressive first 4 there, mate. Surely you're not going 5 absolute primos down back. Are we going mid-price now or potentially a bit of a rookie, buddy?
Oh, I've got to save some spots for the Sicily, Stewart, Sinclair types. I think James Sicily, just before getting on to my D5, James Sicily could genuinely be it could bottom out quite quickly. Because he's too good to be playing accountable. The score against the Bulldogs just wasn't James Sicily a fold, and I think Sam Mish will do all in his power to unlock James Sicily this year. But at D5, I've been pumping him up all preseason because I just wanted to see him play. Zach Williams. I just absolutely love Zach Williams as a player, as a human as well. He's done so much to get back to play at this level. We saw in round 0 just how good he can be, and just how he can break lines. I think that his role is better than others around his price, like D'Ambrosio. And one thing that I really like about Zach Williams is he has the round 2 bye. And this is just one of the strategies that I'm using. Is I wanted to try to have at least a single player from each buy, whether it be a premium, a mid-pricer, or a rookie, so that they can act as the loophole in that round and unlock VCC options across the whole round. Rather than starting a non-playing player, we're going to get players dropped throughout the year anyway. And if we have free players like Williams, it's sort of the devil's advocate is like you can bring him in without a price change after its bye. If you're confident, and I am confident in Zach Williams' output, I'm going to start with him and use him as the loophole in round 2 and save a trade in having to trade him in at the round 3 juncture.
I like it, mate. When you also mentioned about that loophole as well, not only do you have options with the VC captain, you can also take advantage of one of those rookie scores that you've got on your bench as well. So you've also got the choice to actually loop one of these blokes and then choose to use Williams, not use Williams. There's a few options up your sleeve there as well, even if you don't focus particularly on the VC or captain. But look, he's someone that has been in my team for most of the preseason. I reckon maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, for the first time, I really started to look at options without him in there, focused on maybe going with your 2 rookies. That's your 123K type blokes, or even going up to Buderick, changing to Ambrosio. But at this stage, I'm very, very comfortable with Zach Williams. We know what his contract's like. Big money he's on. That's because of his talent. And if you can reach close to those levels, I think this is going to be a huge win. And I want to see the bloke do well also, mate. So,
did I'm also running with Zach Williams. Mate?
Absolutely, he did, mate. Absolutely, yeah. Particularly early on as well. I think he faded a little bit late, but again, that's fine. He had the role. So what I wanted to see was the role. I wanted to see him running well, and it seemed like he was hitting the ground running. So he did everything that I think we could have expected of him. I think for anyone that's expecting him to come out and go 100 plus, that's not realistic for me, but he's going to, in my opinion, absolutely do enough and absolutely showed enough in that game for him to be a really reliable on-field option. As we know, mate, and we don't even have to mention this, anyone that's been playing the game will know that durability is obviously a major concern, but we're not paying up even 250, 300K for the bloke. 200K and a bit of pocket change, so more than happy, mate. Great selection there.
80% time on ground was a really good green tick, I reckon. Just awesome. Against Brisbane, you just sort of look and see, okay, is he going to be sort of pushed back in? But I think when we were talking in the Blues preview as well, we were saying if he's going to play, he will be 100% fit. He's not going to get subbed out or be the sub, because we've taken a really careful approach with him as a club. And I think that he looked good. He looked comfortable, didn't take a backward step, didn't shirk his way out of contests or anything like that. He looked really good. And he needs to average 67 to make 150K. I think, given his pedigree, he should get there.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely agree. Now, I'm sure that we're going with a rookie here. How far down are we actually going, buddy? Who's got your first, let's call it first rookie position on field this year?
A debutant in round 0, Blake Howes. So I was so impressed with just how comfortable he looked at the level. It was just one of those things where as a rookie, as a debutant, you're like, oh, is he going to be a bit nervous or anything like that? And we saw rookies across the round have a really good sort of just introduction into the AFL. He followed 91 points in 74% time on ground against Sydney. Jake Bowie's shoulder injury, I think he's out 6 to 8 weeks, so that should give him some good job security as well. I must admit he wasn't in my side before round 0, just because I just wasn't sure whether or not he'd stick into that side. I wanted to see how Clayton Oliver's impact would sort of have the downstream impact on Salem, which can then impact Howes. But I think Salem and Howes looked quite mutually exclusive of each other. He actually comes in, and it'll be obvious who's missing from here, but he comes in for Caulfield for me. I just think that having the round 6 bye, you can either cash him out if he's sort of maxed out in price, or you can keep him through the bye and use him as your loophole player. Because he plays in round 0, the cash gen is already in place to basically be unlocked at the earliest possible opportunity. And yeah, it screams like a no-brainer selection, either at D6 or on the bench.
Absolutely. That's high score for him is already locked in to his price cycle. So we know that he's going to be going in with a lower break even. We can't predict what he's going to do next week or the week after and all that. But if this is the free data that we've got, and this is the beauty about round 0, we get free data. So in my opinion, if you've watched this game and you're not selecting him, I really don't know what you're doing. He should be, in my humble opinion, in 100% of sides. I think he's that obvious as a defensive rookie. So absolutely agree with you, mate. I 100% have him in my side and we'll be running with him. All right, 2 rookie spots to go. You said you weren't looking to go with Caulfield at this stage. Who gets the next spot on your defensive bench, buddy?
A third-year player, Josh Gibcus. So I think no surprise to many, just with the dearth of defensive rookies available. He looked quite good in the practice match and in round 0. So I think he scored, 76, just 9 possessions, and that's sort of my concern with him, is that he relies a lot on 1%ers, intercept possessions to sort of bump up his score. Even in his rookie season, he averaged 65 until round 13, and then didn't. I think he got injured, or sort of petered out at the back end. He didn't play last year, and he's priced at 27 points. So he's just a perfect. Should have really good job security. Needs to average 55 to make 150k. Just lock him on the bench, and then, like you were mentioning in round 2, maybe just put the loop on him, and just see how it goes with him and Zach Reid, who, as a sort of transition, is going to be my D8. So no Caulfield in this team. I just think that he didn't really impress me, Nick Caulfield, against Hawthorn. It was just one of those performances that you don't know what Bailey Dale coming back into the side will do. There's just too many magnets to be thrown around. Buku Karmas looked really good. I know that Caulfield probably has the best scoring potentially out of Gibcus, Reid, and Caulfield, but Zach Reid, like Gibcus, good JS. If he stays injury free now, we can already see there's a bit of injury baggage in this defense with Williams, Gibcus, and Reid, but a lot of people have him, and it's no better with Caulfield, is it?
Nah, absolutely not, mate. And I think the other thing that these 3 also have over Caulfield is job security. Howe's certainly maybe more short term, but Reid, he'll play every game if fit. Same as Gibcus there as well. And Howe's, as we mentioned, is a no-brainer with that high score in the system. Bowie going down, really impressive. So I really can't see him losing his spot anytime soon. So I think if you're running with this particular structure, you're 4 deep, your Williams, and then your 3 rookies, you've absolutely nailed it with those 3 rookies there, mate. And really like the job security as well as scoring potential as well. We're not looking at hundreds here, but solid enough to make that 150k and be comfortable enough to be running one of them on field. Love it, mate. Now we are absolutely into the big boys. Into the midfield we go. Now, the big question that most people will probably be wondering is, are you starting with the great Marcus Bontempelli? 724,600. We are paying up. There's some people just refuse to do it. Nah, it's too much. I'm looking for value. Not going him. I'll upgrade at some stage of the season. Are you looking to do that, or just lock the man in as your M1 this year, buddy?
I'm worried we won't. he could genuinely not get affordable for non-owners. I'm going to start Marcus Bontempelli at M1. He's had 8 subtons in his last 63 games. How ridiculous is that?
It's nuts.
It's nuts. And he just explodes. Like, even in the practice match, he was on 45 at halftime, ends on 135. It's just, I think with 4 of the first 6 rounds as best 18, you've just got to get those ceiling raisers. Those players that can get that 10 extra points for a 1%er. In fact, Marcus Bontempelli has the highest number of Supercoach points for any non-key defender from 1%ers. Just simple tap-ons, contested tap-ons. I think Jaden Popowski on Twitter
just going to mention
it. 12 Supercoach points from 1%ers. Just like, this is what makes up that Supercoach unhidden form, hidden formula. And Bont just absolutely, he just racks it up. I think perfect captain choice, isn't he, mate?
Absolutely. And another thing, just mentioning Jaden again, is that I think that he really did unlock why certain players were referred to as champion data love childs. It's the little tap-ons, that's what they love. They love these 1%ers. And when lots of people look at the general rules of Supercoach, the scoring rules, these sort of things don't really come up. And that's why it was so elite with Jaden for giving us this data and info. It's like, okay, well, here's where this particular player may have a little bit of an advantage. And it's all about that with Marcus Bontempelli, mate. Massive ceiling. I think looking back to last year, I don't think he went under 650K. He's one of the, if not the toughest player to bring into your side. If you don't start with him, you need all the planets to align. It needs to be an ideal scenario where he's at a low enough price. You've got the players to move on. You've got enough cash in the bank, because it's not simply a one up, one down trade to get the Bont, unless you're going from, I don't know, a Matt Crouch type that you're looking to upgrade or something like that. It usually takes a good couple, and I would just be so scared not owning him. And let's be honest, how will you be able to watch a Dogs game without owning Marcus? You just have to turn off the TV, pretend that there's no game on, and just not watch it, mate. So I'm absolutely with you. Bont as my clear M1. Now, talk about competition. I'm still pulling my hair out with this particular position in my own side. There are a couple of blokes I've been set on all preseason, now getting cold feet. Tell me, mate, before you actually lock in your M2 for us, is it someone that's been in your side for the majority of the preseason, or is it someone that's just recently made their way in?
Both my M2 and my M3 have been in my side since the first team picker.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that, because it means that you're going with your gut. You're still happy with what's there. Because I would have been a little bit worried hearing that the next two blokes had just miraculously come in, because they're really important positions. 100%. It's just the foundation for our sides.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, mate. Who are you going with, mate? Tell us a little bit about the method behind the madness here.
I will say, so I'll do this as a package deal, because...
All right, let's go. 2 for the price of 1.
2 for the price of 1. M2 is Sack Butters and M3 is LDU. Oh, and I'll just talk through it. So they've been in my team since the first team picker, and for differing reasons, people have jumped off them. they've jumped overboard. It's Sack Butters' ownership before his 8-point game in the practice match was 35%, and right now, before the end of the round 0 games, was 18%. So half his ownership has jumped off because of that injury. I don't know if, it's really hard not to be reactionary and say, okay, I'm not concerned. Rosie even mentioned that Butters had done this in the preseason as well. So it was the second time with the same ankle. But I mean, it's always the risk with Butters that he's so combative and he's so just prone to injuries that he's one of those players, though, like we saw at the back end of last year, his last 5 games, owning him was just such a pleasure. I know you were on him earlier, I think, than I was, weren't you, mate?
Yeah, it was funny. Well, I had Clary for a week, finally got him in my side, then he had to go, and then it was Zach Butters that came in for Clary. So I owned him for probably half the season, which was nice, mate. Yeah.
134, 137, 139, 129, 158 in his last 5 games. 118, average 118 as a full-time midfielder from round 4 onwards, including that just brilliant game. And this isn't confirmation bias because it's just what the stats say, but his first 3 games is West Coast. I can see him being rested here or there if he's not 100% fit, but you just got to, if you're going to start him, you just have to cop that. Richmond in round 2, we just saw what the Gold Coast midfielders did to Richmond. 158 was his most recent score last year against Richmond. And then Melbourne, round 3, and he went 189. And as with Dan Houston, those same Adelaide Oval numbers, 4 of the first 5 at Adelaide Oval, 7 of the first 10. He's been locked in. And even with that injury, it's almost like I don't have a good enough reason to get rid of him because there's no other 600, 650K mids that is pick me. I don't have an early buy, anything like that.
Yeah, I like it, mate. And just for anyone that's still worried about that injury, I spoke with the great JB, in case anyone missed it, the Port team review. He literally spoke one-on-one with Zach Butters at a Port function, said he is absolutely ready and raring to go. So, yeah, fears should be alleviated there. I can understand why people are slightly concerned. I must admit, he did go out for a little while for me, mate. But after hearing JB speak about him, all good there. Now, LDU is an ex-bloke. He did this as a package. Another man who has been in my side for the majority of the preseason, unfortunately, just made his way out with my current structure. I've had all three of these blokes in for the majority of the time. LDU just out at the moment. Now, for lots of people, mate, they're spooked about that game. I know that in the last preseason game, if we look back to last year, certainly didn't set the world on fire and then went bang, bang to start the season. So much upside to this pick. We'll look at pre, post, buy. Lots of data on him from last year. Tell us why you've selected LDU as your current M3. Because, again, lots of competition made around the price.
Yeah, I just think I've always viewed him as sort of like the prototypical Supercoach, just jet. He's got the body. He's got, last year averaged 27.5 disposals. The contested rate was 46%, which just a quick shout out to Selby and Moreira's Magic. In the season guide, you got the data comparing the player and sort of what the top 8 for that line sort of is, and all of his data, efficiency, contested possession. His clangers are below that top 8. Clearances is above. His tackles is 4.5 against the sort of 6.5 that the top 8 mids have. And I think that's something that is a work in progress. I'm not concerned by his preseason, and that's sort of what people are concerned by. If I have a concern with LDU is that he just gets injured. He's on a roll. He's putting up 130s and 140s, and then you never know when he's going to get injured. And yeah, he's a jet. Last year as well in the practice match, he only scored 55. And then he came out in the first 2 rounds and he put up, I'll just get the exact numbers up. I'm pretty sure it was 150, 143 and 155 back-to-back rounds. And yeah, it was just he's a Rolls Royce, Supercoach Rolls Royce. You got to look after them. Not sort of ding them up too often. But if he can stay injury free, and I guess just one of the things, it's sort of a bit different this year in terms of my strategy. And it's sort of subconscious because obviously players that are underpriced because they either got injured during a game or they didn't play the right role for a portion of the season. And that's what I think Butters and LDU sort of epitomize there, is that LDU with that injury risk just gets injured. It's annoying. But I think that's sort of the risk you can take with 40 trades. Is sort of having a little bit more of an injury risk tolerance. Just knowing that you can always swap them out for another player, and sort of 4 out of the first 6 rounds being best 18, the risk of having a Callum Mills debacle in your side is reduced a little bit.
Love it, mate. Now, quick question, and this may be hard for you to split because there may be a lot of people watching this at the moment that are saying, damn, love both picks, can only fit in one. Yeah. If you were absolutely put to the sword and someone said to you, Janath, you can only pick one, deal break with the 2, do you prefer one or the other? Could you actually do it? Or is it like if someone asked me the question, what son do you love the most? You just can't really answer it. How do you feel about that,
that's
mate?
Cruel.
Do you have an answer to the question, or you just can't do it?
I'd say Butters. I'd pick Butters. I think he's more enjoyable to watch as well. I think that's something that we always talk about on Swordplay. Is just you want to pick the players you want to watch. You don't want to tune in to watch just someone just get cheap sessions out the back sort of thing. Which I'm not saying LDU does, but Zach Butters is you just love to watch him play. I've seen him live at Gathering, and he's just a brilliant young player. And same goes for LDU. It's really hard to split, but I think one big thing is that LDU has the first buy shared with your Brisbane mids, shared with your Giants mids, and shared with Errol Goulden. So, I mean, when you bring them in after their round 0 buys, you're like, okay, I can't bring in Green, Goulden, LDU and have 3 mids locked in that first buy when a lot of normally teams don't stack up in that first buy. So
great point.
Butters sharing it only with Fremantle as well. I think that's where I'm leaning. I guess just full transparency, the other players that are considered at M2 and M3 in these positions is Libba. Just age. If he was 27, he would be in that team right there. It's like he's underpriced with a 20 concussion score. Oh, I had him last year. I want to pick him again, but he's just like, he's old. He's old. How good can he realistically be?
Oh.
But he's shown it. It's so tough. I know. He could make his way in. I'm not just full disclaimer. Like we were just talking, Libba could come in for LDU, but I'm just going to stick to my gut right now. And then Jordan Dawson is the other one. I think that he took a real step forward as a midfielder, as we all know, last year. And I think he has more room for growth in terms of his goal kicking, especially. I think he can go forward and impact the scoreboard a bit more to increase that ceiling.
Love it, mate. And look, I'm doing my team review probably in the next couple of days. Sneak peek for anyone watching now. Controversial. Out LDU for me, and in was Libba. So that was the reason why LDU actually went out. I'll speak with my man Matty Malta from Inside the Kennel podcast. Just reckons he's got that Libba DNA. And so I'm going with that bloke who's just that more mature head. I know with the age, mate. It's do you go with the old or the young? It's a tough one, but this is not my team reveal. It's yours, mate. And I want to know who you are going with at M4. Are we going with another Uber Primo type pick, or are you going with maybe a value type selection here, mate?
Going with value. I'm going with one of the biggest play with one of the most hyped up pre-seasons this year, Nick Martin. Now, I could reenact what Nick Martin does on the footy field. I'm not sure if he'll look more like a cricket appeal or an AFL thing, but it's give me the ball. He's running past in that game against Geelong, the practice match. He just goes past, sees Parrish or Mary's like just running through, and he's screaming. He's like, you can't hear him, but if this was COVID season, you genuinely all you'd hear is Nick Martin yelling for the ball.
We've got the sign language there, the heads, yeah.
And it was one of the things that, mate, when we both owned Nazaya Wangani Malaya at the start of last year, one of the things that we were really disappointed with him was that he was too passive. He didn't want the ball.
Yes.
And now we got the complete opposite spectrum here, where Nick Martin only wants the ball. It's like, but that's for Supercoach. I don't really care if you, it's funny. This is a very big tangent, but in NBA 2K, you might have played it, surely, DR. But they got the excessive call for pass button when you ask your teammate to pass you the ball too often. Nick Martin.
I love it.
Please tell me if anyone can relate to that.
The excessive call button.
Nick Martin is the epitome of that. He just screams for the ball. I love it. And that's why one of the things I was looking for in the practice match was where he was lining up, because you're not picking him to be a top 8 mid. I'm just being real here. He's not going to average 115. But if he gets to the 105, 110 range, which in the role that he has, Ridley injured to start the season, and with the likely defensive DPP, I can't see why he cannot be a top 6 defender. And I guess in sort of taking this full circle, this sort of reinforces why I want to start Nick Dacos. Is that if that was Tom Stewart, and my back four is Stewart, Houston, Sheasel, Young, Martin goes to D5, there's just one defensive spot left for Dacos, Sicily, Sinclair. And that makes 100%. It really difficult to fit them all in.
100%. I've said that the whole way. And that's the initial reason why Dacos actually came into my side was for that pure reason, mate. Because I knew if I didn't start Dacos, I was going 4 deep and I'm going with a Stewart in that position, just say, then Martin goes back, I'm limiting myself to one player to bring in my defence, and that's Nick Dacos. Because there's no world that you're not going to get in Nick Dacos. So you're really missing out on that potential fall in premium. We know that there's going to be at some stage of the season one of these big boys that just screams value, whether or not through injury or form or whatever the case may be. I don't want to have to lock myself in to just going Nick Dacos. Now, this the big part of the Nick Martin pick, we know what we assume. We're very, very confident that he will be going back. So if I didn't start Nick Martin, there would be a world where maybe I wouldn't look to start a Nick Dacos. But that is a very, very important point, mate, and something I've been harping on when I've been doing my team reviews as well. So love it, mate. And yeah, also massive, massive fan of Nick Martin. So we can see structure-wise here, mate, that you've gone with sort of your three big boys, and then you've gone straight to some value. But again, what I like with Martin is when I'm talking about just a mid-pricer here, we're looking to upgrade. He's going to be a defensive keeper. Who are you looking to go after Nick Martin? Because again, there are some value options that we're looking at here. Interested, mate, to see who is next cab off the rank.
This is probably the least, for people that have been sort of following the way that I structure my teams, this is probably the least sort of typical pick that I would normally make.
Okay.
And that's Ollie Wines, because he's not going to be a midfield keeper. But in this year, with the buys, I'm using him simply as, let's call him an Airbnb. He's a short-term rental.
Here we go, an Airbnb. I like it. With wines included.
So that's his new nickname now. He's the Airbnb.
I love it.
The reason for this, so he's priced at 83. He's averaged 104, 112, 105 in 3 of the 4 years before last year. He's back to train as a full-time mid. And again, I was looking really closely at what Port Adelaide's midfield mix would look like. It was disappointing that Butters got hurt early, because he would have got a really good look into what the split between Wines, Butters, Rosie, Horne-Francis, and Drew was. I think those 5 and Jackson Mead are the only 6 that are going to roll through there. But Ollie Wines looked amazing. And it's funny, I've called him an Airbnb, but he might generally become the Hilton Hotel at some point this season. He might become the Shangri-La. We don't know, because he looked good. 76% CBAs, 12 contest possessions. And again, full transparency, my plan with him is at round 6, I'm going to take a look at who have fallen mid-premium that's had one of those early buys, whether it be a Goulden, Clary, Petrarca, Tom Green, Touk Miller. And so it'd be Wines and Howes or Gibcus to one of those premiums, and a rookie. And Wines will help get through those 4 of the first 6 rounds in the spot off a rookie. And so I think that's just the way I'm going to go. And again, this is completely against the normal philosophy, which is guns and rookies, but you just got to change with the times. We don't have best 18 rounds like this all too often. And if Ollie Wines can get a 120 in one of those best 18 rounds at a price that's 200K less to a Christian Petrarca, for instance, or Bontempelli, it's probably like 260K less than a Bont. It's funny how times have changed from them being 1-2 in the Brownlow a couple of years ago.
Mate, amazing, isn't it? Now, very quick question with that, mate. So you mentioned about looking to maybe jump on one of those buy players, round 0 buy players. What would you be hoping or expecting that Ollie Wines' price would be? So currently 463. What are you hoping that he's going to be roughly around when you, or if you decide to flip him around that period, mate? What would you be happy with?
I'd take 550K.
Okay.
If he can get to 550K, which is 100 flat, I think that's a successful selection.
I think if that's what you think, he really is a perfect type pick, isn't it? Because that means he's giving you the on-field points. He's making money that some of our rookies would as well. So if that actually is the case, mate, I think that would be a huge win. And given the fact that Kenny's come out and said he's going to be a CBA midfielder, all better for it. The only thing that I was a little bit worried, as you said, was the fact that Butters didn't feature in that last game. Will he actually get that much of the pie, Ollie Wines, or will he even rest a little bit more time forward or spend some time forward? I don't know if that's going to be 100% realistic, but I don't think that he needs to score anything like he did in that last game for this to be a successful pick. So we can lower expectations very much from that game and still manage to be pretty happy with this as a selection if all things go well. So I'm a fan of the pick, mate.
One more thing to just add with that. This is the third time now in this video alone, just that Port Adelaide fixture.
Yes.
The fact that they play 4 or 5 at Adelaide Oval and they play 7 of 10 start season. Ideal world, I don't hold him through all 10 games. But again, West Coast round 1, Richmond round 2, Melbourne round 3, Essendon, Fremantle, 4 of the 5 at Adelaide Oval. It does seem like a pick that can work. And I'm not asking for him to average 110. If you go 100 flat and can just get up to a price where, and that's one of the challenging parts. We're going to want Tom Green in as soon as that buy's over. Well, not as soon as, but we want him as one of your first upgrades. Most of us will want.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
And you can't get him from, like, we don't want to cash in Colby McKercher's, Sanders, Reeds too early, because we just see in past years gone by that these gun rookies, they just keep making cash and you use them as your final upgrade. Sometimes we just hold on to them. They're just that good.
Very true.
And so if you can have a mid-price, and I've been considering the likes of Took, Jack Steele, Matt Crouch, just watching those sort of type of players really closely. But I just think that if Adelaide played anyone other than West Coast and Crouch had that exact type of game, I would have picked him instead of Wines here.
Yeah, you're actually... Yeah. You're reading my mind, because that was going to be my next question. Obviously, we can see Wines is at this selection. We know that you're skipping your Crouch, your Steele, and your Took types. So you were tempted to actually run with a little bit more value. So let's just say, for example, lots of people are going with your Bont, Butters. Let's just lock those two in the Ubers. Are you comfortable with people starting, say, a Martin at M3 and then a Crouch and then a Wines? Or do you thinking that's just playing with fire a little bit too much, mate?
I can't blame them, because this year is really the year of value. And I don't know how much of it is being reactionary to the 40 trades that we've been given. How much of it is the fact that our forward lines are looking like we're looking like dumps to heaps for for most of them. It's like one man's trash is another man's treasure sort of thing. The fact that we've been sort of gifted value in the rucks, it's just, where are we going to spend the money? That's why it's like, I think the midfield is where you got to spend your money. Midfield, and pay enough for your likes of Dacos sort of thing. But I can't blame anyone for going Martin, Wines, Crouch, Steele, Took. One pick that was really, really off, and a lot of coaches got lucky, was Cam Guthrie. I was just never a fan. His age, like, at least Wines and Crouch, I think they're both 28, 29. Guthrie's getting up there in age. He has had soft tissue injuries. So it just wasn't the biggest fan of that selection.
Beautiful, mate. Great discussion there with the elites in the midfield. Are we going all the way down to a rookie now, mate? Or are you going to play with fire and add in someone like a Rolly Bonner, for example?
I'll tell you what. When I was playing around with my team to try fit Dogger Jackson in there, Riley Bonner did make a brief, very, very brief appearance into this side. But now I've become more rational. And you wanted I gave a 2 for the price one. I'll give it a 3 for the price. Buy one, get 2 free here.
Oh, here we go. All right.
And I think a lot of teams will be looking very similar. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. McKercher, Sanders, Hustwaite. And so just to speak through the picks, I think McKercher, there was a video that someone released throughout the off season, just showing his kicking style against Zach Merritt's, and you just can't take that vision out of your head, because he's like, geez, it looks good. He averaged 150 Supercoach points. Now this data is courtesy of the great Azajul on Twitter. He's been collaborating with Third Man Up throughout the off season, giving us some good, valuable Supercoach data for our rookie data dumps. Just seen 150 Supercoach points in 4 games, 32.5 disposals. He's priced at 36, so he only needs to score 64 to make 150K. Again, we have that rolling door of North Melbourne halfbacks that can score well. He scored 55 with 78% time on ground and 2 kick-ins against the Saints. Yes, it's a bit concerning because he did play so well. So it's sort of that expectation that, okay, he needs to score 100 every week, which we got from that first game against Collingwood. But I think he's going to be really nurtured, just like Sheasel was last year off that halfback line to keep him involved in the game.
Very nice, mate. Yeah, look, I know some people got cold feet. Didn't look overly clean in that game, but you look at that scoring history, absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, very quick shout out again to Azajul. Met him for the first time last week and mid last week. Absolute ripping lad, and introduced me to a couple of nice drops as well. So big shout out to you, Azajul, legend, mate. All right, Sanders now, mate. What can you tell us about him? Absolutely locked in for me. I think this one's a pretty obvious one, to be honest.
We think 150 Supercoach is impressive. Well, Sanders has just gone and said, hold my beer, 170 Supercoach points in 4 under-18 championship games. He was the MVP of the under-18 championships, 30 disposals with just 17% CBAs against Hawthorn in that practice match. In a team that was basically only missing Jack McRae as a sort of a midfielder, 86 Supercoach points. He just reminds me so much of, not so much the way Joel Selwood played, but the impact that Selwood had in that 2007 grand final team where he was a rookie, came in and just had an immediate impact. I think that for the Bulldogs to succeed this year, they got to get the most out of Sanders and just play him in his best position, because the clock is ticking on Bevo, really, like pressure-wise. I've got a good friend that's a Doggies fan that said that they've sort of taken the chips. They've taken all the chips out of Bevo's hand and given it to the dealer. He's got no chips to play with now. He's playing on house money.
Love it, mate. You're right. He's a crazy man, mate. I think, as you mentioned, mate, he's just so much to like about the pick. If you're impressed with the Kirch's numbers, even more impressed with Riley Sanders. And the last one we've got here, M8, currently on field, mate, is Henry Hustwaite. So I know for me personally, didn't really start to come into calculations until these practice matches, but played super well. Looks like the role's there, bigger body type. What can you quickly tell us about why Henry's currently sitting at M8 for you, mate?
Yes, so with Sanders, they both need to average 61 to make 150K. I just like tall-bodied midfielders have a real role to play now in the AFL in sort of the way team structure, that sort of thing. And he had 47% CBAs. He got around the ground really well, tackles really well. And I think I can just see that there's been big raps on him throughout the preseason. He scored 83 in his debut game last year as well. My one concern with the pick is that even without Will Day, they had Newcomb, McKenzie, Nash, Warple, Ward, and Hustwaite all get centre bounces. So it's probably one of the least sort of strict midfield crops within the AFL. But it's a really strong midfield. I can see James Warple coming a bit off half forward, the half forward line. If Hustwaite isn't all that he is made out to be, and he does get dropped when Will Day comes back in, I'm pretty sure that he would have made at least a bit of money, because he feels like one of those rookies that will score really well, because he can't really play a Hustwaite type off of half back or anything.
That's what I was going to say. He's built for that midfield role.
He's a midfielder. Yeah. So he's either in the team and scoring well, or he's out of it. And you would have hoped that you would have made some money by then to cash him out if he's the one that's dropped for Will Day.
Yep, could not agree more, mate. And really like those on-field rookies. All terrific scoring potential, particularly the first two. Awesome job security, and Hustwaite certainly in the short term, and would not be surprised he actually played himself into great job security in the long term as well, mate. All right, now we are on the midfield bench. So again, a few options here. Are you going to go one by one? Give us a bit of a package. How are you going to do this one for us, mate?
I'll be kind to the viewers and go one by one here. So we'll go Matt Roberts at M9. Actually, I'll tell them all. So I'll just talk them through the thought process as well. Darcy Wilson at M10. and then Jai Clark at M11. So just on Roberts, round zero's sort of just confirmed my thinking with Roberts. Not many sort of players are hyped up or talked as much internally as opposed to externally as Roberts was throughout the whole preseason. He's a halfback. He's playing really well off halfback. These sort of comments sort of reinforce, but you sort of want to see with your own eyes, didn't you, man? And just seeing the fact that teammates gave him the ball to take the kick-ins, that's a big deal because it's those intangibles that you want to see. Okay, is he running off the back of stoppage? Roberts did that. Is he in the middle of the ground waiting for the switch kick? He did that. Was he taking kick-ins or asking for kick-ins? He did that. Some players just hand the ball back to, I know Melbourne with Stephen May, they just very passively give the ball to Stephen May. Here you go, mate. But they were doing that too, Roberts, and it was really good to see. 156K, and he's sort of the bailout option if Hustwaite was to get dropped or something like that, because you just play him. One thing in that midfield is I don't have any players that have an early buy right there. And so the only way Roberts would get on field is if one of those players was to get dropped or if I was more confident Roberts scoring more than Hustwaite. So that's just a little sort of thing that might be a decision to make week on week. And then with Darcy Wilson, he may make that decision more difficult because he looked so good against North Melbourne. He isn't as natural as sort of Sanders or McKerch in terms of Supercoach, but again, 104 average in the Coates Talent League, Supercoach points, and he scored 79 Supercoach points in the Under-18 Championships. St Kilda had big raps on him, as with Sydney for Roberts. And yeah, I think he'll fit in really well. Dan Butler's injured to start the season, so whether or not that sort of impacts Wilson's job security when he comes back in, so wait and see. But there's a hole left there from Jade Gresham's departure as well.
Awesome, mate. And quickly, Jai Clark.
Yeah, so I think a lot of coaches will have Jai Clark in here at M11. The Geelong midfield could arguably, I don't want to hurt the feelings of many Geelong fans, but one of the weaker midfields in the AFL. There's just not much depth there, is there? And so with Cam Guthrie out, Jai Clark's job security went up exponentially. A foot injury curtailed his 2023 season, but in the one game he did play, 6 disposals, 5 tackles, and 25% time on ground. Like, from an inside mid, you can't really ask for much more.
Absolutely.
And then in the preseason game, 69% time on ground, 64% CBA, so 86 Supercoach points. Cats fans, the media were hyping him up as sort of the Joel Selwood clone. If he's anything like Joel Selwood was in his first year, we're blessed.
You'd be very, very happy, wouldn't you, mate? You would be very, very happy. Yeah, I think he looks like a great selection. Really impressed me. Passed the eye test in that last game. So, I think he's going to be a very popular selection. Probably right there at M11, to be honest, mate.
Yeah.
All right.
Just quickly, mate, just with in terms of the others sort of that I had in my consideration, I didn't really think much before the Carlton-Brisbane game, but Jack Carroll, with Sam Doherty now out, he had a 60-point third quarter. How about that? That was 10 possessions at 100% efficiency, 1 goal. Absolutely just tore your mob a new one, unfortunately, mate.
Jack Carroll out of all people. Jesus.
We talked about him. We talked about him in the Blues preview. But I didn't think that he would be close to the best 23 to start the season, even though sort of Crip had hyped him up a little bit. But yeah, he looks really good. And then Jacob Ware was the other one. Jacob Ware, Jeremy Sharp, these wingers that may or may not be around the ball. I'm not sold on Ware after yesterday. He just looked a little bit fumbly. Dropped a couple of easy marks, which could if he marks them, it probably boosts his scoring. And then Jeremy Sharp, again, it's just not a pick that fills you with much expectation compared to sort of your Roberts, Wilson, Clark types. He's really popularly owned. And that could be a concern if he comes out of the gates scoring well. But yeah, I think right now I'm settled on those 3. We'll talk a little bit more about F7, F8, and why Wilson is in the midfield there.
Beautiful, mate. Very, very solid. It is now time for the big boys in the ruck. Few options here. Very, very controversial. Some people looking to drop Gawn, bring Dogger Jackson in, go all the way up to some like an English. I know that you've been personally using Gawn at one for the majority of the preseason, mate. Does that remain the same, or have you jumped off the Gawn bandwagon? Who are you going at R1 this year, buddy?
Max Gawn.
Maxie, staying with him.
Yes. And this is why I try not to be too reactionary to the practice match games, or round 0, not a practice match. Woof. He did look gassed, and that is a cause for concern, I think, because Melbourne's backup rucks we were doing it for the rookie data dumps, the preseason ones with Ross and I. Melbourne have 3 rookie ruckmen as their R2, 3, and 4. So it is Gawn or nothing, basically, which is a concern for Melbourne. But I think Supercoach-wise, Max Gawn will play through anything and everything. He has in the past. And one of the things that I just want to reassure those that are jumping off Gawn, here are some numbers from the past 3 seasons, the past 3 seasons, he's been sort of the number 1 ruck. His round 1 score and his round 2 score. So in 2019, round 1, 87. Round 2, 116. 2020, round 1, 93. Round 2, 184. 2021, round 1, 93. Round 2, 137. And round 2022, he went 92 and 88. So just at that level. But more off the story, I think Maxie's one of those players that he put all his chips out against us, against Carlton, and it's like,
smashed it.
He smashed us. But Brodie Grundy played Max Gawn in a way that not many other ruckmen can play him. I can't think maybe Jared Witts, maybe Nankervis. Like, there's not too many ruckmen that can throw their weight around with Max Gawn. And I feel it's more of an anomaly than the norm with Max, apart from the fact that he was gassed. And that just might be because Brodie was, if anyone that watched that game, he was pushing him. He was giving him sort of rib punches and all that. So it was, yeah. But I think Max, if he excluded his injury-affected game last year, he would have averaged 110. In 6 games without Grundy, 132. 14 games with him, 92. That's a 40-point swing right there. He is older, 1 year older, but if he doesn't need average 132 for us, does he?
That's right, mate. That's right. And look, as you mentioned, that Carlton game, we saw what he can actually do. Talk about a ceiling. He's up there with the biggest ceilings in the game, if not the biggest when he's on. We've seen 200 type scores from this fella. So, yeah, mate, I have been off and on flirting with Jackson over Gawn, but yeah, most likely will be with you and run with Max at this stage. But we'll wait and see, mate. Now, the next bloke, I'm pretty confident that you will be going with him after his round 0 performance against Max Gawn. But are you going with a pod move here, mate, or just going to lock in Brodie Grundy and throw away the key for now?
Very vanilla. Going with the old Gawndy combination. Brodie Grundy's in there. He's loving his life up there in Sydney, and I don't know what the AFL schedulers, they put back-to-back revenge games for him. Melbourne round 0.
Haven't they?
Collingwood round 1. Very interesting. 139 Supercoach points, 23 touches, 15 contested possessions, 9 clearances. But the biggest thing that I love to see about Grundy is 6 tackles. He was just laying body onto his opponents and just not letting them get away. It was one of the things that he was really missing in his couple of years at the back end of Collingwood and then at Melbourne. He just he didn't have that same hunger or desire to get around the ground and impact contests. But the 15 contested possessions and the 6 tackles is a big, big green tick. And for those that were worried after the practice match, rest assured, no Laddams played. I'll tell you what, Digger, Guess how many clangers Grundy had in that 139 Supercoach performance against Melbourne?
Oh, no idea. 5.
Have a good 9.
9.
He could have had that. He left 180 out there. 6, I think it's 6 free kicks against. Like, he could have had a huge score.
Wowee. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, mate.
Yeah.
He just seems like, doesn't he? I'm with you, mate. I don't think there's any reason not to select this man. I know a few people may have got cold feet after that game when Laddams, the old peanut, was in the side partnering with him. But look, it was pretty obvious, mate. The peanut was never going to do any damage, was it? Brodie Grundy, mate, absolutely locked for me. Now, R3, there's probably 2 options here. Are you going with a Naismith or are you going with a loophole, mate? I think that's probably one of the 2 here.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with the fact no loopholes to start the season, trying to get cash gen across all lines, going with Sam Naismith. He looked good. I thought yesterday against Gold Coast, he put up, scored 93. So that's just cash gen. If Nank isn't back, they subbed out Samson Ryan as well. And so I think when Nank is back, they'll play Ryan if Lynch isn't there, but it's just such a revolving door. That sort of 4-man combination of Nank, Naismith, Ryan, Lynch. What's the dynamic going to be there? Is Adam Uze going to rush back Tom Lynch? It's just something to consider there. I'm not too sure on his job security, but I think handy bench option. And if he does survive through the buys, he could be really handy coverage for Brodie Grundy in the round 5, in the Sydney round 5 buy. One of the things that I've sort of got a contingency for, but I don't think it will work out, is when we trade out Sam Naismith, we're going to have to trade in a ruckman. And one thing that I've sort of tried doing years past is have a ruck forward in the team somewhere, so that you don't have to waste a trade on bringing in, because most of the ruckmen we trade in are going to be non-playing, because there's not many 123k or 180k ruckmen like a Conway that's going to be lying around that are playing off their bubble. We don't really get lucky like that. And so years gone by, we've had Sam Draper, we've had Briggs. There's these players that you want to bring in, but at the same time, you're wasting a trade on trading a 102k to a 123k to another 123k, and then basically reversing that trade again. So it's tough, and I can see the logic behind starting Livingston from that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much one of the 2, mate. You're either going with your Livingston or you're going with your Naismith. One of the 2, and hey, arguments either way. Now, mate, we are into the forward line. So this is where things have changed for a lot of teams, particularly after round 0. Flanders was out for lots of teams, started in, went out, now back in again. Heaney, I think, for lots of people, was not even on the radar, including myself, who was now tempting many. And with the news that Mr. Darcy, Shrek Darcy's gone down, Dogger Jackson has certainly made his way into many teams as well. We've even got someone like a Zach Fisher the week before who really solidified his spot as a real super coach option. So I think most teams that I've seen, 1 out of those 4 are currently the F1. Are you starting with one of the bigger boys? Are you getting Fisher in? Are you excluding all of them? Very interested, mate, to hear who your F1 going into 2024 is, Legend.
My F1 is going to be Zach Fisher.
Oh, okay. So no Dogger, no Heaney, and no Flanders. Possibly controversial, mate. I can't believe I'm saying that, but possibly controversial. Very interested to hear about your forward line setup.
Yeah, it's so tough, because Fremantle said, I think was it 5 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks for Sean Darcy, and then you had all the sort of rumors like, okay, that's for a normal person. How long would it take for an athlete? Is it longer? Is it less? Luke Jackson with our Sean Darcy is an animal. And he's the one that I'm afraid of antipoding. by not picking him, because so many people were picking him before Sean Darcy's injury. Now more people are picking him after his injury. So it's like, are people like, and the data is there to back it up. I think he averaged 120 odd. He scored 173 in a game against Brisbane without Sean Darcy. But in that game, I think Darcy fought was rucking, not Oscar McInerney. So let's talk about who I do have at F1. Zach Fisher. And the role that he had against St Kilda, and also against Collingwood, was quite reminiscent of the haul that Aaron Hall had a couple of years ago. 132 Supercoach points with 36 disposals. Again, I'm not gonna scream or anything, but he wants the ball.
He was, yeah, absolutely.
He wants the ball. He's running behind players, and they trust him. Which, as a Carlton fan, I'm like, okay, do that at your own risk. But 6 out of 18 total kick-ins, 82% time on ground, which is something that I was looking at because he has had those hamstring issues in preseason. But yes, so Fisher is there, and it would just be fair to say to the viewers that it wouldn't surprise me that Fisher stays, but my F1 changes, just because it's just such a dynamic landscape with Flanders, with Jackson, with Heaney. And I'll get to it at the end of the video as well, but I have about 90k in the bank at the end of all this, just fine-tune some spots there. But for the most part, anything that I mentioned here about players that are locked in, they're locked in. It's more so like the LDU, Wines, and this next man that's coming up, Nat Fyfe.
Oh, we're on the Fyfe train. Here we go. I'm with you, mate. I'm with you.
If the ship goes down, we're all going down together, because
that's it.
Nat Fyfe, I've got good memories of Nat Fyfe. He helped me get into the top 150 in 2020, the last upgrade I made. But
you have a good relationship.
Ever since, he's just been burning everyone. But yeah, it's very similar to Ollie Wines. Past Brownlow medalists actually being played in their proper position.
Yep.
And the thing that sort of, again, Fyfe looked really good against West Coast, but at the same point in time, I reckon you could look good against that West Coast midfield DR. He's back in a full-time. He's back in a full-time role, and we sort of mentioned before with Hayden Young as well. It looks like Sarong, Young, Fyfe, and Brayshaw as the ancillary piece on the wing is sort of what it looks like when all four of them are on the ground. Against Port Adelaide, he had a very low kick-to-handball ratio. I think he had 18 handballs and 26 disposals, 72 Supercoach. And we're not expecting the tackles, many marks from Nat Fyfe. He needs to average 79 to make 150k. But basically at this point, DR, honestly, I'm just throwing darts. We're throwing darts and seeing which of these forwards are going to stick. Because I don't see much value in Jackson, because as soon as Sean Darcy's back, you've got to do something with him.
Yes, it's a short-term
because at that price, you can't just hold him, and you're going to lose the cash you would have made on him that I'm presuming would be made.
Agreed, mate. Absolutely agreed.
Heaney's the one. If he didn't have that early buy, he would be at F1. That role, it's again, we're talking about players that have burned coaches in the past.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And, no.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Heaney,
I dream of Heaney.
Yeah, well, mate, I dream of Heaney. Nightmares of Heaney at times as well, mate. But all right, so we're going Fisher and Fyfe. So bit of a mid-pricey approach so far. I'm guessing we're continuing along that line. Who have you got there at F3 at the moment, mate?
So unlike Nat Fyfe, I'm more sold on James Jordan. So James Jordan will be the F3, and this is partly to do with his sort of performances at Melbourne. So he had 8 sub-affected games in 2023, but in those non-sub-affected games last year, he averaged 69.5. He broke out as a rookie a couple of years ago in the premiership winning team. I think that without no Parker, Mills, Adams to start the season, he should sort of have the green light in that Swans midfield like we saw in round 0. He had 81 Supercoach, 18 disposals, lowish time on ground, only 70 odd percent. But yeah, I think he sort of feels like a safe pick. And in terms of centre bounces, he only had 21% CBAs, and that may be a cause for concern. But I think he plays his role really well in that team, and should get close to averaging the 77 needed to make 150k.
Beautiful, mate. I like everything about this pick at the moment. We saw what he did the week before and pretty solid the week after. Lots of opportunity there with their current injuries. So I think he's close to a bit of a no-brainer selection at the moment myself, mate. All right. F4, who are we going with?
At F4, I'm going to go with James Harms. Now,
okay,
again,
interesting. Yeah.
Similar to Nat Fife, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not the biggest fan of the pick, but there's enough upside there to pick him. So just looking at the data there, average 70 in 2022, 87 in 2021, 64 in 2020, and 95 in 2019. In the practice match, he didn't set the world alight, and it looked like him and Riley Sanders were sort of playing sort of complementary roles in the Bulldogs midfield. 74 Supercoach points, 17 disposals, a goal, 72% time on ground. He needs to average 74 to make 150k, which I think just based off of the data we've got there, he should go quite close to that. I think that in games where he needs to play an accountable role in the midfield, he'll get more CBAs. And yeah, it just feels like a safe-ish pick. But the reason why I said with Fife and Harms is Fife and Harms could be the ones that together combine to go up to a Flanders, a Heaney, or a Jackson, and then get another rookie into the team. And if I was just to rank the three of them, Flanders, Heaney, Jackson, it is very difficult because Heaney and Flanders have early buys. Jackson is sort of a short-term rental, but there is a plausible play where you can go start Jackson, jump onto Heaney after the buy, or start Jackson, jump onto Flanders after the buy. So it's just playing that around. Oh, it's really hard because Flanders looked good yesterday, didn't he?
Oh, he did. He did. I've been playing around with having all three of them in, none of them in, one of them in. It is so difficult, mate. It is really, really difficult. And Harms is another one. There's just so much competition around here. And he's one that's actually just gone out of my side. But I'm with you. I think he's a pretty safe pick. We look at that history there. I think the role's good enough. And I suppose the other positive may be, given the fact that he really didn't set the world on fire in his last game, that's all that he needs to do to actually make him a successful pick for us. So that may give you a little bit more confidence, even if you didn't rate his game too much. Well, hey, that's all he actually needs to do. If he does do a little bit more, then that's even more of a bonus. So don't mind Harmsy there, mate. But as I said, currently haven't fit him in my own side. All right.
Can I ask you a question quickly, DR?
You may,
mate.
Can
you see absolutely. A world where Anderson, Rowell, Took, and Flanders all average 100 or more? Because they're going to average more than 100. It's not going to be 100 flat.
Well, you look back to the Dogs days, you've got your Bont, Lidder, McRae. Was Treloar doing it? Were all four doing it?
Treloar, Baz.
Oh, look, Baz, I could see a small world, but I think with the four, all right.
Yeah,
so Adelaide.
That world is the only world that you would start Flanders in, I think. Because the other three will average 100.
I'm not confident enough to say yes. I'm not. What do you think? Do you think he's a chance with the other three going 100 plus as well?
I can't see it. Like, Richmond of years gone past haven't been the most fantasy friendly side. And the dimmer, have they? 4 midfielders scoring 100, and probably Witsy will score 100. That's a lot of points.
It's a very good point, mate.
But what are we going to say with Adelaide? You're talking about Adelaide. Sorry.
No, well, I was just trying to work out, their mix, just how with your Dawson, Laird, Crouch, not a lot of people going. Some people are going with the Sam Berry type there. I was just trying to think of some other teams that you may have those big four. But look, mate, we'll talk about Flanders another day because he isn't actually in his side. But let's talk about who is. We're getting close to rookie territory. Who goes on field next, mate? It's your F5.
Got the number 1 pick from last year, Harley Reid. So
oh, shit, I was going to select Sam for you there, mate. That would have been a bit of a doozy.
So averaged 102 in 3 VFL games. So he played VFL. I know he suited up for Carlton in one of those games. Gee, would have liked to see him run out on Thursday night as well. 112 Supercoach points in 4 under-18 championship games. He just needs to average 65 to make 150K. Now, there may be a scenario where off the 3,300 Supercoach points the West Coast games are with, that West Coast only get 1,400, 1,500 of those points. So the upside is limited for Harley Reid, but with number 1 picks, all it takes is 1 spike score. He scored 88 against Adelaide, 61% CBAs and 3 kick-ins. So he's got that dual Nick Dacos role a little bit. 20 disposals. The only concern I have, and it's similar with, for instance, like a Nat Fyfe, is that he gets managed. And so he either plays as the sub or he comes on, he gets subbed off or he gets rested entirely. That's just one of my concerns. Not too sure how it will eventuate, but he's just so highly owned and the potential is there that it's really hard to risk not starting him. And then he just gets away from you early.
Yeah. And I thought he looked a lot better in that last game as well, mate. The fend-off actually worked, which was good. So I think a few people scared off, but entered their teams again pretty quickly, I think, mate. All right. Now, who are we going to go down to with your last on-field position? There's a few options at your mid-price. There's the rookies where we go all the way down to 120 to 130K. Who gets that last on-field spot for now, buddy?
This sort of epitomizes how much of a mess our forward line is this year. I'm going to go with Alex Sexton.
Alex. I'm with you.
It's incredibly it's stupid. If someone told me that Alex Sexton's going to be my F6 at the start of the preseason, I would have told you you're joking.
Absolutely.
But Dimmer's gone in there. He said, you're a halfback, and they're giving it to him. They're hand passing it to him, making sure he's an outlet out of defense. I personally have never rated his kicking as a forward. I thought it was a bit of a just one of the bottom 6 players sort of at Gold Coast in that best 22. Yep. But 125 Supercoach in the preseason game, 31 disposals, 11 marks, 6 out of 15 total kick-ins, and then yesterday as well, like he had clangers, which sort of limited his scoring, 5 clangers, but he got to 73, 21 disposals, 8 marks. Felt like every Gold Coast player was playing well. They looked invincible. He's always starting on the field, which is a really good sign in terms of his job security and just how he's rated at the club. It feels a bit different from Charlie Constable, knock on wood, because there's a lot of similarities there, but just the way that Dimmer talks so much about him. You didn't see that with Stuart Dew about Charlie Constable last year. We just picked Charlie Constable because he's playing in defense and he's filling in a specific role because of the injuries that Gold Coast had.
Absolutely, mate. I think his career was on the absolute scrap heap until Dimmer came along. If Drew was there, I don't think Sexton would still be there. I think they just lost all faith in him, looking for youth. But look, Dimmer's found a role for him using his attributes, obviously that pace, a little bit of X factor as well. So I love the selection, mate, and an absolute lock for mine. All right, 2 more spots. We've got our F7 and F8. So who gets you 2 bench spots in the forward line, mate?
So F7's going to be Caleb Windsor. So he was on my field for a little while.
Yep.
Throughout the preseason. He played really well in round 0 against Sydney. So normally the SCG is regarded as like the graveyard for wingers because of just how narrow the ground is. But he looked at the level, looked a little rushed at times, but He scored 58 Supercoach points, 13 disposals. He needs to average 60 to make 150k. I think that of the rookies, he's in that upper echelon of job security. With Lockie Hunter still on the sidelines, injured. And I think even with Hunter back, they'll probably find a spot for Windsor. And it was it should be really reassuring for Windsor owners that Jack Billings was made the sub. Because Billings, when he came on, he didn't look good at all. But it just goes to show how highly they rate Windsor to start him on the field over the more experienced Jack Billings there.
And I think you like playing on the open spaces at the MCG a little bit more than the SCG as well, mate. So, look, the big question for me is I've been flipping between this man, Caleb Windsor, and Charlie Lazaro. Yes. I've currently gone with Lazaro because of his more of an inside type role, contested type role. Obviously you've selected Windsor over Lazaro. Can I ask you why you've gone with your Windsor over the Lazaro, given the fact they're basically the same price, mate? Is there something that lent you Windsor's way?
I think part of it comes down to, if you look at the team right there, picking Lazaro would be 5 North Melbourne players. Now, I just talked about West Coast potentially only getting 1,400, 1,500 points the Supercoach pie. North Melbourne is probably going to be quite close to that as well.
Yeah.
And so with Lazaro, again, I just see there's just so many. If he's not playing full-time mid, then how is he going to score well as a North Melbourne half forward or coming off the half forward line? And so you've already got LDU in there. You've got George Wardlaw in there. Now there's definitely room for more North Melbourne midfielders. Don't get me wrong. I just think that I like the job security a little bit more off Windsor. Probably not the scoring potential, but definitely the job security. And
fair enough, mate.
Oh, it's so tough because with that 90k, I could really go down to Lazaro and bring someone up. And I would be happy to field Lazaro. Honestly, if I had to pick Lazaro wins the field, I would field Lazaro. I just think that one thing that I've always gone with bench rookies is looking for that job security. And you can see across the line there that I think apart from Naismith, the other 6 all should have good job security. So that's sort of why I've gone Windsor there. But you can mount an equally good case for Lazaro as well.
Yeah, bloody hard to split, aren't they, mate?
Yeah.
All right, we've come down to this last position, mate, at F8. Again, a lot of competition. Could be a fair few names here. Who's got the nod at the moment?
So I've gone for a player that played last night, Aaron Cadman.
Mr. Cadman.
Now the data may not be overly impressive because he averaged 23 in 12
It wasn't
AFL
terrific
games
last year, let's be honest, mate. It wasn't terrific last year, but it looks like he's put on some size. Tell us about why you're looking at the big AC.
Now, it's multi-layered here. I'll go with the first fact is that he plays North Melbourne and West Coast in the first 2 rounds.
Tick, tick.
And he's got 55 in his rolling average right now. I think off all of these players, he probably has one of the highest job securities off them all, you would think, because they've given him a defined role. And I think that's really important. Him and Jake Riccardi are the second or the backup ruckman. And this is all the wildest dream here would be Aaron Cadman getting ruck DPP at round 7.
Oh, wouldn't you love that?
Imagine it won't happen, but if that happened, that would mean that when Naismith gets traded out, Cadman goes whoosh to R3 and you can bring a forward in. It won't happen.
You could only dream,
because he needs to play. Is he going to get 35% ruck time? Is get a bit of Kizinya gonna rest up that much? Can't see it. But this is another one of those picks. So I think the revolving door in my forward line is Fife, Harms, Cadman. Those 3 picks are the ones that I'm not fully settled on. And just others in consideration are Lazaro, Jackson Mead, 112 points, 20% CBAs against Freo, touted as an inside mid for this year from Port Adelaide. Again, like the other power players, has that early run at Adelaide Oval, has 7 of 10 at Adelaide Oval. Biggie Nuon, I was saying I don't want to have too many Kangas players in, but he looked really good as sort of that second tall intercepting defender for North Melbourne. I didn't think that Pink and Nuon would be in the same defence, but that again sort of reinforces why it's good to have the North Melbourne halfbacks, because both of them aren't the best users of the footy. And so they're going to try and get it into Sheasel, McKercher, Fisher's hands to get the ball out of defence.
Good point, mate.
Buku Kamas, was quite impressed with him against Hawthorn.
Yep.
Now, whether his role is there when Alex Keith gets back, not sure. But James O'Donnell as well, who the Dogs have big raps on. And then Lockie McNeil, I know sort of been in Bulldog circles a bit of a whipping boy, but he plays a role well. When Caleb Daniel came on, he sort of blunted his influence a little bit, but without goals, he still got up to 90 odd Supercoach points. So I think he's another one in consideration there at 153k. Is it DR?
159, 100.
159k. Yeah, that's it. So I guess the reason why I've gone Darcy Wilson in the midfield as opposed to defence so the forward line is I think there's better forward rookies than there are midfield rookies. Unless Jack Carroll, for instance, is named round 1, which is after his game on Friday night, I think will be a big possibility. And we saw that if he plays, he's going to play as a full-time mid. And as soon as Doherty got injured, straight into the midfield to start the second half, and he basically stayed there throughout the second half as well.
Jeez, he played well, didn't he, mate? Played very, very well. Well, look, if we talk about very quickly before we end the video, mate, almost an hour and a half. So enjoyed every second of this, mate. If you look at your overall structure, we've really gone your 4 deep with your Dacos, Houston, Sheasel, and Hayden Young. Zach Williams is at, well, technically mid-price, so I'm calling him more of a rookie there, expensive rookie. Howes, who made his way into all of our sides, I think. Gibcus and Reed, both with terrific job security, more of those key type players. In the midfield, Bont, Butters, LDU as the real big 3 dogs there. 2 value picks in Martin and Wines. Obviously, Martin being a keeper, looking to go down back. Wines will be one of those stepping stones looking to get upgraded. You got 3 wonderful rookies on field here, all with great scoring potential in McKercher, Sanders, and Huswaite. And then onto the bench. What I really like about this is the fact that you do have some really nice cover in Roberts and Wilson, solid best 22 each week. We've both seen them score really well in the preseason also. So given the fact that you've got those 2 not even needed on field at this stage, I think it's a real luxury, mate. Clark from Geelong, they should be getting games into him. Aging midfield. Let's see Clarkey in there from week to week. Then into the rucks, Gawn and Grundy. I think for most people, that combination has stayed true for most of the preseason. Nothing wrong whatsoever. Naismith is that real obvious one. He's got a good score on the system. Don't know if Nank's going to be back. We'll just wait and see on team sheets there. And then you've really resisted the temptation for your Jackson, Heaney, and Flanders types, which lots of people have not been able to resist, whether or not one or a group of them. You have gone with Fisher, Fife, Jordan, Harms, Reed, Sexton, and then obviously Windsor and Cadman. Cadman with that really nice early draw, great job security. Windsor, just over Lazaro for you, but as a bench option, I think that's fantastic. And everyone on field there, I think, again, can score well enough to be terrific, not only on-field scoring options for us, but also make that 150k minimum, or not even maybe minimum. Maybe you might be happy with more of 100 to 120 with these extra trades. Who knows? But 150 has pretty much been the unwritten law when it comes to what we want to make out of our rookies. So
that's sort of what I've been going with as well, is try to get up every single player, look at their average, add 28 points. That's the average they need to sustain to make 150k.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I guess one thing, just as a quick disclaimer, is there's not many round 0 buy players in this team. and that's something they've been really conscious about, is the only players, premiums that have early buys is Nick Dacos, who unfortunately has to share it with Brodie Grundy, but they're both non-negotiables, and a lot of coaches will have them. And then Max Gawn. Basically, as far as premiums go, they're the only three. And so, again, I've sort of resisted the temptation to go for a Gold Coast or a GWS midfielder, whether it be Tom Green, Tuke Miller, Sam Flanders. It's really hard, mate, honestly. Oh.
Well, mate, you've also got just over 90K in the bank there, which is handy also. You mentioned you're starting with someone like an Ollie Wines. Depending on what happens with him, just say if things don't work out too well, and all of a sudden you've got at least sort of the 560 mark there already with him. So I like the fact that you've set yourself a little bit of cash in the bank. And with that cash, you'll also be able to make some moves to this current team in case you do want to make any sort of last minute changes, mate. So I know with my team at the moment, I think there's about 5K sitting there. Not overly comfortable with that slow amount, mate. But while I get the team in the middle there, mate, that is your team review for 2024. I know a lot of people have been extremely keen for this. I think your last video last year was one of the more popular videos for the entire season, mate. And that's because you have a wonderful Supercoach mind. We know multiple top finishers, top former 150 finisher within there as well, mate. So looking forward to the Swordplay potty coming up. Looking forward to all of our chats during the preseason. Before you go, mate, can you give us a bit of a sign off? Any last minute thoughts that you'd like to leave the viewers before we end the video, buddy?
I reckon we go back to a similar time last year when we made that tips video. Back your gut. I think at this point in time, don't follow the crowd. Forget the ownership. Just back your instinct. If you're on a pod, you've been on a pod all preseason, don't have a look at round zero scores and say, okay, I'm going to jump ship off this pod. There's been times I want to have Jai Newcomb in the team. Player that I really like to watch play. Just can't fit him in. But if he's for you, jump right on board and stick with it. I think the more Supercoach is a game, and at the end of the day, if you want to enjoy how you play, that's the biggest thing. And yeah, just pick the players that you want to see play week in, week out, and those that you want to sort of go on the journey with. That's sort of what I've done, tried to do with my team, because I want to see Nick Martin yelling for the ball each game.
Absolutely, mate. And it's going to be a very fun journey going into this season, because with 40 trades, lots of different structures, lots of different opinions and ideas, we're going to see some phenomenal Supercoach action this year in 2024. So I will leave all of JANATH'S info for the third man up, obviously his Twitter handle there as well. We will be back bigger and better than ever with the Swordplay potty this year. JANATH, Spills and myself looking to get many special guests on. We'll tell you about something very, very special that's coming up that I have hinted about in some other videos as well. But JANATH, it is always an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you for coming on to reveal this absolute well-oiled machine, I'll call it, going into this year. And will not be surprised, mate, to see you take home that 50K this year. So
too kind, mate. Let's share it. Let's get on that. Let's finish number one together, mate.
Absolutely. Hey, 25K.
But even better than that, more realistically, let's hope that one of this community takes it all out.
Absolutely. Someone from this community, mate. You know what? I'm almost sure of it. All right, then, brother. Well, you take care, mate. Much love. Thanks very much for watching, guys. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers, mate. Bye.